and he could have been prevented by using marijuana instead, because you can't overdose on marijuana. But you can't because it's illegal, so no one does that. Okay. For medical purposes, 14 states already have this, meaning that other states are not using benefits of medical marijuana to help those in need, as much as they should. There was a case where a little boy had seizures on multiple occasions, and they wouldn't allow him to have medical marijuana. But if it was legalized, he could have had it. When they did give it to him, he was cured. Okay. It would be a really good revenue for the government if it was taxed. According to a 62-page report published by Cato Institute, legalizing taxing marijuana would be an estimated progress of $8.7 million in profit. In Time magazine, it reported that after legalizing recreational use of marijuana, Colorado collected around $70 million in taxes, which is nearly double the tax revenue brought by alcohol taxes, which is about $42 million.
Okay. You can stay up there because we have a time where they ask you questions.
Oh, that's a question.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. So first I want to start out with that it was specifically mentioning only the use of recreational, and a lot of your guys' argument was based on medical, but the topic is actually recreational. It has nothing to do with medical.
I was told that we could use medical as well. By my,
Do you have a question?
I was told by him that we could not.
Do you have a question?
Yeah. Oh, why? How is that relevant? If he said specifically that we cannot use medical references, why is your guys' a lot of your main arguments based on that, but it is only recreational?
That's only one of our arguments, and we're told that we could use medical.
30 seconds. Use.
So are you saying that your recitation leader has more authority than Mr. Lincoln?
No, but he did tell me.
Okay, you guys mentioned that dictating the right amount to help somebody. So who dictates the right amount? That seems very subjective. For medical marijuana to give the right amount of AU to somebody.
Oh, they wouldn't allow the little boy to have it because he was too young, and he just wasn't going to get it because it wasn't legal.
1 minute.
So
Use.
it's very regulated.
Okay, so with legalizing that though, who is going to regulate that? Because that's something that's very subjective. It's different on a case-to-case basis. So how could you do it subjectively in a fair way?
I don't think you really need to be very regulated because marijuana is safe to use.
So it's fine. So it's fine. It doesn't need to be regulated. A 3-year-old could use it, and a 99-year-old could use it just openly as much as they like.
Yeah, but I think 18 years or older should be able to buy it.
1 minute, 30 seconds. Use.
Okay, you just said that it didn't have to be regulated. So you're saying it would have to be regulated somewhat?
Well, yeah, because it has to be 18 to buy it.
Okay, and how is it an alternative to alcohol? You guys mentioned that.
Alcohol and marijuana are used both recreationally, and alcohol is much more dangerous than marijuana.
Done?
Yeah.
Okay, good job. All right, now we'll hear from our negative constructive speaker.
Pot, weed, ganja. These are all negative connotations for a negative drug, marijuana. Marijuana is a drug that causes laziness and apathy towards one's life. While there is indeed positive uses for the drug, like pharmaceutical drugs, the negatives far outweigh any good use that marijuana may bring. Marijuana is, of course, a gateway drug, and ever since it's really come to light, the issue has been pushed farther and farther out of the spotlight. Early use of this drug can cause vulnerability that can lead to stronger drug use and addiction. It can lead to cigarette use and addiction to nicotine. Some users use that because they think that it can sustain the high a little bit more. Many users use blunts, which is marijuana combined with tobacco, to allow them to be able to smoke and make it appear legal and make them allowed to smoke in more social situations. Risk of addiction is another cause for concern, as risk of addiction directly correlates with frequency of use. It is shown that 1 in 11 users can become addicted to the drug, especially if they're young adults. Marijuana interferes with the brain's cognitive abilities, especially the younger one is. Although Cheech and Chong would like you to think differently, it is linked to the mental health issues such as depression, anxiety, and suicidal thoughts. Worsening symptoms are that of schizophrenia, which is a severe mental disorder in which hallucinations, paranoia, and disorganized thinking can occur. This is the sort of thing that is not mentioned in weed propaganda films such as Pineapple Express. As well as mental issues, smoking irritates the lungs, causing them to not be able to function properly. The chance of a heart attack is increased because it raises the heart rate for up to 3 hours. Since marijuana has been legalized in certain states, the unemployment rate has risen. Those who are already homeless decided to move to these states, and they increase the population of unemployment people because they're just hanging out smoking dope. Those out of work may result to drug use if marijuana was legal. Those without jobs may have much more harder time finding a job due to drug tests and random drug tests while they have the job, if they already have them. Drug abuse could in fact reduce a person's employment prospects because it decreases productivity. Economic benefits are outweighed far by the rise in healthcare costs. In states where marijuana is illegal, the government has been picking up the tab. In other words, those who go into hospitals for marijuana-induced accidents, such as in emergency rooms like heart attacks or heart rate going up, young adults cannot pay this tab, so it's an incredibly large bill, up to $500 to about $1,000. I know I couldn't pay the tab, and teenagers definitely couldn't, so the government ends up picking up that tab. The government is forced to then pay, and the hospitals take a major hit, no pun intended. According to CNBC, the additional cost of drug education and rehabilitation combined with the increased social costs associated with increased marijuana use and sale are all greater than the potential revenue gained through legalization. So in the end, don't take that hit because you might regret it in the end. Thank you.
All right. Carrie, you're not doing this. Questions?
No, I'm in the summary.
The questions to ask.
Quick question.
Okay, go ahead.
Did we let it on?
No, it's fine. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So you were explaining that it's a gateway drug. Explain that further.
Well, there's some studies that are shown that early marijuana use initiators, that's vulnerability to where they want to try out more drugs and they're at a party, say, oh, I smoked a little bit of dope one time. Oh, hey, there's some cocaine. I've heard that that's fun. I've done drugs. Let's do that drug. It's that kind of thing. It's just one of those things that's cause and effect. Maybe it's not a case for all issues, but it is a case for most. So it's just
Cause and But isn't the act of going further and doing other drugs, isn't that a decision that you make right there on the spot, not because the weed is present?
It is, but sometimes, hey, let me ask you, have you ever had a beer? Well, that's one thing. You can have a beer, and then next thing you know, you can have another beer. It's the same kind of thing with marijuana. You can have one hit of the marijuana smoke, and you can end up taking a couple more hits of the cocaine.
Okay.
You just never know.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. So it's been shown in studies, such as the American Journal of Drug and Alcohol Abuse.
Thank you.
And drugabuse.gov. Go ahead and look that up. It's a great read.
Okay, but how is that, like, how can that be, like, concrete? How can they actually observe that?
Sorry, that's cross-examination for you. Okay. All right, now we'll hear from our negative attack speaker.
Have some facts I want to go through. Alright, so with the government picking up the tab, as Sam said, USN News says that marijuana use accounts for tens of thousands of marijuana-related complaints at the emergency room through the United States each year. 99,000 are young, for these accounted emergency rooms attempts, 99,000 are young people. And when these 99,000 young adults get ER bill anywhere from $500 to $10,000, more than likely do not end up paying for their bill. Also, with the addiction side of the THC, since marijuana is a drug, you would expect some people to become addicted to marijuana. In order to cure the addiction, a person might want to enroll them in a drug rehab course. According to rehabs.com, the average cost of rehab is anywhere from $7,500 a month to a high skill program for $120,000 a month. With insurance having to pay its costs and the government helping, this also takes a hit towards the health care in states that allow marijuana as legal use. Also, the addiction of this product, according to CNBC News, the additional cost of drug education or rehabilitation classes combined with the increased social costs associated with marijuana use or sale are greater than potential revenue gained through the sales tax on marijuana. Also, I want to go into irresponsible behaviors with using marijuana. People make poor choices under the influence of any substance. Weed impairs your brain, causing you to make the choices you would do if sober. Another quote from CNB News, teenage pregnancy costs the government money on health care. Teens are using marijuana are more likely to have multiple sexual partners and engage in unsafe sex. Young adults having children because of irresponsible choices while using marijuana. Another accounted for costs for teenage pregnancy is government assistance such as WIC and Medicaid. These programs are funded by the government to supply insurance and food for families who cannot afford it. Also want to bring up major ways states collect money. States collect money from fees, fines, tickets, and bails and bonds. According to Huffington Post, over 750,000 accounted arrests for marijuana were recorded in 2011. That's one arrest every 42 seconds. This leads me to believe that states are losing the extra profit from bail money and tax, tickets, and fees. That once was a huge part of the state's extra income. And then my last say will be the poor farming. Farmers grow this crop just like any other. There are faults with growing any other crop. According to Newsweek, the Denver area had to be quarantined because of a misuse of pesticides. Pesticides turned outward and improvised contagious of chemicals, including some unidentified mixtures, leading to the government having to spend money to hospitalize anyone who may be sick from these pesticides. Also, the government is spending money employing teams to regulate and monitor these farms in order to produce safe product for the customers. This also adding to the grand total. All these factual evidence has my team and I confused on how the government in these states are making any health care or tax profit. Thanks.
Okay. Doing it again?
Question?
Yeah. Yeah, you're supposed to rotate it between the summary and the defense speaker. There is a period of questions again, absolutely. However you want to do it. However you want to do it.
Okay, you were talking about how farmers would have to grow it and such, and it would cost money, but doesn't that kind of defeat the unemployment, because that would just create jobs because it would have to be regulated?
Correct, but they do hire government agency officials. It would create jobs, but these people are obviously more of a higher scale teams, I believe.
But
Not just your person making, $7.25 to go out and regulate farms. It's a little more advanced people doing the job.
doesn't mean it has to be federal. It could just be someone who's more advanced than a $7.25 minimum, correct? Is that right? So that would still create jobs. You just have to get more schooling. And granted, that might be more money, but wouldn't that still be better than using our federal government or something like that?
In some sorts, yes.
Would-
you're still having to go to school, taking out loans or paying your way through college to get to these higher educational places.
Okay. Going to school would mean a higher revenue for the government, so wouldn't that help our government?
Can you repeat that?
Going to school would create a bigger revenue for our government, so wouldn't that help our government in the long run?
Well, it also honestly, I think that's just a small job. It's not, you don't need a huge team to employ them to do it, but it does cost money, of course.
And my next question is, how is THC addictive?
Well, it is a drug just like any other, and THC is pretty much like, it's like any drug, like nicotine is addictive to THC. I don't have the facts on that, but I'm pretty sure I did read that it is addictive to THC.
Exactly how many overdoses has this addictive drug caused?
Well, I do have a fact right here that 1 in 11 users do become addicted. Now the overdose, what do you mean? Can you elaborate on that?
Like, how many people have overdose? Like, with cocaine, you overdose, you die, or whatever.
I do not have a number of overdose. But the poor decision making, that's not, you don't have to really overdose to impair your brain.
But how would one...
It's time. All right, great job. All right, now our affirmative attack speaker to attack the case. Oh, yeah.
All right, so some things I want to bring up. You're talking about what's the right amount, like how can we prescribe a certain amount? Well, we do the same thing on a case-by-case basis with medicine that we already have. It's not just marijuana. It's not just, incorporating marijuana into the medical system for medical uses, and I know it's not technically medical use speaking, but it's still something that you can put into recreational use. It's still going to give you medical benefits. But incorporating that into our medical system wouldn't be any different than just a prescription drug. You go to the doctor and say, hey man, I'm having some back pain, so he gives you some pain meds, but you still got to prescribe how many you need to take a day, how many refills you get, stuff like that. So it's a case-by-case basis. It's no different than going to the doctor for pain meds. Also, you were talking about like poor farming and you get pesticides and all that. The same thing happens with food. You get food recalls all the time because something went wrong in some sort of way. And the thing is that you can regulate not only the amount of THC that goes into marijuana, but you can also regulate how it's farmed, how it's produced, all that. And that creates jobs in the government, for the federal sector, I should say. Because you have the option of either incorporating it into the FDA, I guess technically you could do it to the DEA as well, or you can create a whole new organization. Either way, it's creating jobs, and these jobs are going towards people who are going to regulate. This is how we grow the marijuana. This is how we're going to harvest it. This is how we're going to pack it. This is how we're going to ship it out. And this is like, you can regulate these things. And then you were saying that like, oh, well, there's just a small amount of jobs. Like it doesn't take that many people to really grow marijuana. The thing is that if you're incorporating it on a federal level, which is what we're talking about, it's mass farming across the country, just like food. It's no different from food with the regulation on pesticides and how it's grown. And it's no different than food on how we're going to farm it, other than that it's a different process. That's all we got.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so you were saying that it does create jobs and it creates more jobs than what Brandon was saying it creates. And I just wanted to point out that it actually, you have to have a license to do any of this, a very specific license that eliminates criminal backgrounds and anything like that. So my question to you is, how are the homeless people sitting on the street who are getting arrested for sitting on the street, how are they going to become employed with this career?
Well, that honestly, I think that goes to a different argument about criminal justice reform and stuff like that, but there are programs within jails that you can get like your GED, you can get trained for different jobs. This is no different. You can get trained. If you go to jail and you tell
currently in Colorado, you cannot have a criminal background and get these licenses. And then another question that I have for you is, how are you going to regulate a prescription drug as marijuana if you can't measure THC in the brain? It's difficult, almost impossible, to measure THC in the brain. So it's kind of hard to know how high you're getting someone.
Well, if it's difficult to impossible to measure THC in the brain, then how can you say that it's such an addictive drug? If you can't really pinpoint down, hey, this is how much THC this guy has, so he needs to use it.
It has to do with how people react to marijuana and how they are when they don't have it after they've had it for a certain amount of time, particularly for young people. And then, of course, the brain damage is long-lasting. So if you're prescribing a drug that has long-lasting brain damage, how do you justify that?
The same way you justify alcohol.
But you don't prescribe alcohol to people.
Right, it's available on a more ready basis, which makes it even more dangerous than marijuana. Yet it's still legal and it's still hurting people, it's still causing damage to their bodies, and we still don't do anything about it except tax it.
Okay. No more questions.
Okay, all right, good job. Yeah.
All right, so a couple things that were brought up during the attacks and the questions. People really seem to disagree that marijuana is a gateway drug, even though it has been proven. Marijuana is the first illegal drug that most people try, and it is currently illegal, so I know we're talking about that. But there exists a consistent progression of adolescent substance abuse, beginning with alcohol or cigarettes, moving on to illicit substances, initiating with marijuana, and progressing to hard drugs like cocaine. And also, early marijuana initiates have increased vulnerability for drug abuse and addiction to other substances that are used later in life. It's actually been found, particularly in African American populations, that marijuana leads to cigarette use, that they smoke weed and then they smoke cigarettes. Findings of this study support notions that marijuana can serve as a gateway drug for nicotine use and dependence. There also appears to be several reasons why adolescents combine marijuana with cigarettes or cigars. Some adolescents smoke it because they think that it will enhance effects. In addition, practical considerations reinforce this practice. Both blunts and marijuana-filled tobacco cigarettes appear legal, thus facilitating use in a wider range of situations. However, using marijuana with tobacco product has the undesirable effect of facilitating nicotine use and dependence. Association with marijuana users can also lead to association with hard drugs. People who are more vulnerable to drug taking are simply more likely to start with readily available substances like marijuana, and then tobacco or alcohol, and their subsequent social interactions with other drug users increase their chance of trying other drugs. Also, marijuana has negative health consequences too. You can't say it's all great. You've got the hallucinations, you have a wide range of physical implications on the body, from smoke that irritates the lungs, raising the heart rate, marijuana use during pregnancy, and also marijuana use as a kid leads to risk of brain and behavioral problems in the person and the child. Drug abuse reduces a person's employment prospects and can lead to someone becoming or staying jobless. So marijuana users may choose not to seek employment at all due to intolerance of marijuana in the workplace. Being under the influence of marijuana could have adverse effects on job performance. And there has been a there could be a national increase in unemployment, which would lead to increased drug abuse problems. Economic benefits are also outweighed by the healthcare cost. So, like Brandon said, the government's picking up the tab on the healthcare costs. The people are going to the hospital, and it doesn't even have to be like a raised heart rate, because I know people are thinking, oh, well, that doesn't happen. I smoked weed last night, it didn't happen to me. So, you can be in a car accident, and someone said earlier that it doesn't impair your driving, and that's just not true. It does. Everything that is a physical, mind-altering substance will impair your driving and impair your ability to operate heavy machinery, Guarantee you it says that on the bottle that they prescribe. Also, the irresponsible behavior, getting behind the wheel of a car, and other things that just stupid people do, like putting bottle rockets in their shirts and shooting them off and stuff like that, has people in the hospital. People do this stuff. So, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you.
Am I supposed to be asked questions? No, that's okay. No, why are you saying?
Now we hear from our affirmative defense speaker.
Okay, so I know you guys talked a lot about how this is a gateway drug, but I don't believe that it is, because these, like you said, it leads to cigarette use and other kind of smoking. Aren't those compartmentalized, I guess that's the word? Cigarettes and weed are not the same thing. You actively tell yourself, I'm going to smoke this weed, or you're going to tell yourself, I'm going to smoke this cigarette. It's not all of a sudden you're going to smoke weed and then you're going to go crazy and then you have to have cigarettes. It's not going to work like that. You have to make a conscious decision to smoke that cigarette. And I don't think the weed is going to cause you to do such things. Also, you guys, at the beginning, when we were first questioned, you said a lot of this had nothing to do with the medical purposes of it. But you talked a lot about the effects that it had on your heart rate and the effects it has on cancer. We have, according to WebMD, there are no long-term cardiovascular problems for the normal person after smoking marijuana. Yeah. So these are definitely two separate issues. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
we're done? Okay. That brings us to our summary speakers. Yeah.
Okay. So first I want to start out with the fact that we were discussing it in a medical sense only to convey the negative implications of it on a person's body. You measure things medically with the body, that's how you do it. Our argument, unlike theirs, is not based on the medicinal use of it. So starting with that, I wanted to state that out, that a lot of their facts, things like that, they were based on the medical use of it. Our whole argument today had nothing to do with medicinal legalization. Everything we discussed is supposed to be towards the recreational use, which is something we focused on in the lab. So in comparing each side's reasoning, I believe that our negative stance provided much more factual data as to why recreational use of marijuana should not be permitted, much less legalized. With analyzing both sides, you'll see that the stances contrast greatly in the respect that the negative provided undisputable proof as to the facts our arguments were based upon. We see time and time again the negative implications of legalizing marijuana for recreational use. The legalization of marijuana would have irreversible, irrevocable damages on many aspects of lives that we enjoy today as Americans. The legalization for recreational use would result in negative implications on a social, political, welfare, and economic scale. We may aim to belittle the issues of recreational marijuana use or simply cast it aside, it is essential to protect all people from these consequences. The responsibility of educating the public on the facts of marijuana is no small task, but however, with accurate and responsible information outlets being provided to the public, the choice would become a clear one. So through our debate, we've provided sound, concrete reasons that provide the consequences of legalizing recreational marijuana. And every single one of the facts that we stated had information to back it up. This is information from healthcare.gov, things like that, which is the government. we've focused on how contrary to popular belief, it is addictive, it leads to irresponsible behavior. It's the first illegal drug most adolescents try. Marijuana can lead to cigarette use, has a wide range of physical implications on the body, interferes with the brain's cognitive abilities. An association with marijuana use can lead to association with harder drugs. Drug abuse can reduce a person's unemployment prospects. It can lead someone to become or stay jobless. The national increase in unemployment could lead to increased drug abuse and persistent drug addiction issues, which ultimately leads to the government, as I said, picking up the tab. And once again, I want to emphasize, these are all facts that can be backed up. So for reasons outlined above, costs greatly outweigh the benefits of legalizing marijuana for recreational use. Our facts alone can win this debate, as the reasoning for the means of our facts being uncontested by the opposing or affirmative side. Thank you.
Okay. And finally, our affirmative summary speaker.
In our argument, we had said nothing about how it affects our motor skills or anything like that, so that's just kind of random. But we also talked more about like jobs and taxes than we did medical. When we stated that there was no record of it having long-term effects on the heart, we weren't saying that in the use of medical use, as in like medicinal marijuana. We were saying that because that is what we found in an article stating about anybody who smokes weed, whether it's for medical reasons or not. Also, most of the facts that were stated by the opposition weren't very concrete. As for me, I heard maybe 2 or 3 that sounded kind of right, but the fact that saying THC is addictive when there's been no proof of that is not very solid. Also, when you're socializing, if you're hanging around other drug users, that doesn't make you 100% like, oh, hey, I'm going to use drugs. That is your decision 100%. Like, just because you're around them doesn't mean you're going to do it. Meaning that if you know someone who smokes marijuana, or if you've even tried it once, doesn't mean you're going to continuously do it just because you're around that person.
Okay. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, would you join me in thanking all of our debaters? Woo! Stay up there. It's traditional to shake hands after a debate to prove there are no hard feelings.